I believe that everyone is creative and that our creativity is medicine, and not just for ourselves. It's our hope and our connection for a better world for all of us. I'm Ashley Riley, and this is Made of Dreams. Welcome back to another episode of Made of Dreams. I'm your host, Ashley Riley, and if you tuned in last week, you know that I'm switching things up a little bit from Season 1. In Season 1, I focused heavily on interviews with other artists, lots of conversations about how artists create, digging into habits, processes, and blocks, and then showcasing their work on the pod. I loved those episodes, and if you haven't had a chance to listen, they're all there waiting for you. You never know, you might just find your new favorite artist. But this season, we're diving in a little deeper and talking more about the energy of creativity and the stories we tell ourselves about it, and about ourselves, and our work, and sharing our work, all the things. And as a bonus, I'm adding in a little tarot pull on the topic as another layer to the energy and maybe a little extra guidance or insight. I've got a wide variety of topics planned this season, like fear, creative slumps, self-sabotage, promotion, the loneliness of art, creating community, connecting with an audience, self-trust, creative identity, and so much more. But if you've got a topic that you'd love to discuss or an idea around creativity, I'd love to hear from you. And the best way to do that is to send me a message on Instagram at Made of Dreams Podcast. That's M-A-D-E. One time someone thought I meant maid, like a cleaner, and sometimes I still think about that. I guess I could be a maid for creativity. Anyway, Instagram at Made of Dreams Podcast for any ideas and topics that you'd love to hear about. And now it's time for a little segment I'm calling Weekly Obsession. Weekly Obsessions. I'm sharing anything that's lighting me up this week because sharing is caring and I care about you. So this week, I'm loving this podcast that I listened to accidentally. Well, I started listening accidentally, but then I stayed for the whole show. And then I listened to another one, and it's called The Pop Apologists. And what happened is that I'm like on the verge of needing readers, and I thought the show was called The Pop Astrologist, so I thought it was an astrology podcast. And you can imagine my surprise when they started off talking about Kendall Jenner and Jacob Elordi, both celebrities that even I know about. Anyway, it was such a fun little listen, almost like a beach read, but in podcast form, you know? And it had been so long since I'd listened to a podcast that was kind of fluffy. And the two hosts are adorable sisters. They have this really cute, like, self-deprecating thing that I love. And anyway, if you're into pop culture, I think you might enjoy it. Or if you just need to, like, catch up on the celebrity world. They also talked about Shoegate with Bethany Frankel, and I had no idea about that. So that's my weekly obsession for this week. And now I'm going to go ahead and get into this week's topic. I thought it would be a good idea to start at the beginning and dig into the energy of inspiration, the thing that gets us going, keeps us at it, and fuels the fire. So I thought it would be a really great kickoff and get us into the right headspace. For some, inspiration strikes like lightning, and then it's off to the races. You can overhear a snippet of conversation in life, in a movie, anywhere really, and then your mind takes it somewhere new. For me, as I've pondered my own creativity, I've realized that I am a very curious person. I ask a million questions all the time, and I want to dig into whatever it is that I'm talking about. There's a little bit that I saw, and I actually Googled it so I could be factual for you here on the pod. And honestly, it's a good thing I did because I could have sworn it was an SNL skit, but it was actually the comedian Jeff Foxworthy, which is so random. And I'm just as surprised as you are, to be honest. But he tells this story where he gets a text and it says, "Please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck." And then he goes and shows his wife. And she's like, oh no, was he driving? And he says, I don't know. I just got a text that says, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. And then she says, were Carol and the kids with him? And he says, I don't know. I just got this text that says, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. And she's like, is he in the hospital? And he's like, I don't know. I just got the text that says, please pray for Tom. He was in a bad wreck. Anyway, it goes on, and it's pretty funny actually, and it's also pretty representative of me and my husband. Really, I'm the one with all the questions, and it just seems really natural to me to ask. I mean, I do talk to people all day long, and 9 times out of 10 I'm focused on talking to them about themselves, and so it just doesn't seem strange at all to me. It's not like in a reporter type of way questioning either. It's just like, I'm interested and I'm keeping the conversation going and, replying with something interesting that maybe I've heard or seen or read about or whatever. When I used to work in a salon, I would notice that some stylists seem to be like the main character energy all the time. Like their clients would come in and they would listen to wild stories about them and what they did over the weekend all day long. And the clients would kind of live vicariously through them. But it was the same story over and over and over and all day long and all week long, really, until they went out the next weekend and had some new wild story to tell. I also heard those stories all day long and all week long, to the point where I could probably tell those stories with the same level of detail as they did. We honestly should have tried it just to be fun. But I realized it started to get a little old, and that wasn't really my style. I liked to have a different conversation with each guest, and I feel like that allowed me to cultivate the art of conversation and also relationships with my clients over the years. And that might have went a little off topic, but I just find that when you're curious, you're open, and you never know where that might lead you. Like, you'd be surprised the conversations I've had. I've actually learned quite a bit about working on a cattle farm, so inspiration really can come from anywhere if you're open to it. I also try to remember to not get too locked into a certain way of creating or feeling like I have to, have this cup of tea, this time of day. I allow myself time and space to pick it up and put it down. And I know some people really thrive on structure, and I think that works for me in terms of setting aside specific time for the activity, but I do like to experiment with how I do things, because for me personally, the second that I think I have something figured out, it changes. So I just prefer to be adaptable. I once read an interview with Jason Isbell where he spoke about writer's block. And he said he doesn't really believe in it. And I don't even think I had been writing long enough at that time to think I had gotten writer's block yet. But that kind of set me up and changed the way that I thought about it too. He said, quote, I don't think there's writer's block. I just think you're unable to enjoy the work you're doing. You can still write. It's not like you forget the words or how to put a pencil to a piece of paper, end quote. That thought led me to think, like, okay, if I'm uninspired and not having fun doing this work, then I need to go live my life and have some fun. Read a book or go outside, go move and be a part of the world. I always kind of like hear in my head the Indigo Girls song, Fill It Up Again. The well runs dry and you go fill it up again. So with that said, I'm going to go into the tarot pull that I did on the energy of creativity. I decided that pulling one card left me wanting a bit more, so I'm playing with a 3-card spread, and I'm calling them like this. Card 1 is the heart, so the heart of the matter, if you will. And at first, I was like, this card will be the light and the good, but sometimes the heart of the matter isn't necessarily lighthearted and good. So I'm just saying the heart of the matter. Card 2 is the ache or the shadow or the sticking point. And then card 3 is the pulse or the spark. And I can't decide what I like best, but the third card is going to represent advice or action or just a layer of clarity. So for the pull this week on the theme of inspiration, once again, I did pull from the Wandering Star Tarot by Kat Pierce. The heart card is the Page of Wands. The ache is the 5 of Cups. And the pulse is the Nine of Swords. That's a pretty cool spread. The heart and the ache seem pretty clear to me, but let's break it down. So the heart, as I'm calling it, is the Page of Wands. And wands are the fire element and literally represent passion, creativity, and desire. Astrologically, think of fire signs like Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. It's also associated with the planets Mercury and Mars. Mercury is communication and learning, and Mars is energy and ambition. So the Page of Wands represents our goals and building our dream life. It's energy, charisma, action. The page is a younger energy. It's more at the beginning of the journey, and it's a new opportunity, and the page is like, go for it. So that really tracks for the heart of inspiration, that it's fire, it's action, and it's going for it with the heart of a beginner, starting the journey. Even talking about the page, I feel like lit up and ready to go work on something, ready to start something. It's being fascinated and feeling pure excitement for the road ahead, and then believing in your potential. And the song that just popped into my head is Arcade Fire, Ready to Start. Then the ache. We have the Five of Cups. And the cups are a water element. So the cups represent our emotions and our inner feelings. Think of water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And although the Five of Cups is specifically tied to Scorpio, which is ruled by Mars, Scorpio is very comfortable in the uncomfortable emotions. So this card can point to intuition and the subconscious mind as well. And I don't know about you, but most times when I'm creating art, what I'm driven by are my emotions and my feelings. I may be working through something and not even realize how it's going to come out in the art yet. So the ache can be asking us to get comfortable sitting in those emotions and using them in our work. Mars is the planet of action again, and emotions are energy in motion. So even sitting with uncomfortable truths and feelings could allow them to just move. And I like to think of feelings as waves. They swell and they crest, and then they recede and they get bigger and bigger, and then they can calm. I used to do this little meditation with my son Woodrow when he was younger and couldn't sleep. I would have him take some big breaths in with an audible sigh out, like, because that audible sigh is an instant sign to your nervous system that it's safe and can start to relax. Then I would have him think of a beautiful place in nature where he could sit and watch the clouds. And I would tell him, your mind is the sky and your thoughts are the clouds. Just let each little cloud pass by. And that would usually get him really calm and relaxed, and he could get to sleep. And I feel like maybe that could be a good, easy practice, or even just thing to remember when you're feeling a little discouraged or dysregulated in your thoughts, because the Five of Cups can represent what's gone wrong. It can be focusing on what you don't have. It can shift your attention from all that possibility in the Page of Wands to what you feel has been lost. So this is one of those cards where when you look at the image on the card and really see it's this lone cloaked figure looking down at 3 cups that have spilled on the ground and ignoring the 2 full cups that they still have. Off in the distance is another world and a bridge behind them, but they're not even looking up to see that. So it makes a lot of sense as a shadow side of inspiration, because we can be pulled into this trap when we're creating of also editing and judging as we go, or not being happy with where we are in the process, getting this tunnel vision of how hard things can be and not looking up, not looking out over the horizon for another way. All right, let's check the pulse, which is maybe the unseen energy or the action, and in this case, it's the Nine of Swords. This one wasn't as clear to me right off the bat because I was thinking of the pulse as kind of clarity or wisdom, but here we have a not so positive card. Let's decipher it. The swords are the air element, which is the mind, our thoughts, mental health, communication. Swords are sharp and quick, and they can be productive or destructive. The Nine of Swords astrologically is linked to Mars and Gemini. So lots of Mars in this little spread, lots of action and energy for sure. Gemini energy can be a little scattered and dualistic as it's represented by twins. So it's both sides of the coin, and it quite possibly could represent overthinking. The Nine of Swords is a card of mental anguish and self-limiting thoughts, fears, criticism, and almost like thoughts that paralyze you or keep you up at night. So I think in this case, what the pulse is saying is to see that energy and to acknowledge that, but to know that's not the truth. Not to let those thoughts take over. Not to let those thoughts keep you from starting something or keep you from finishing something, which is what I struggle with. I'm a really good starter, actually. I take action immediately and I jump into things like both feet in, but then the excitement fades and I have the tendency to kind of just move on to a shiny new project sometimes. So with this spread, I feel it's saying to face the fear, face those thoughts, and still go for it with the energy of the Page of Wands. That is the heart of inspiration. And so when we can look at things through that beginner's mind, we can really be led. Sometimes when we think we should be farther along down the path or we're looking to the side to see what other people are doing, it can inspire us or it can block us, make us uncertain of our own path. So think about that free-spirited exploration, unlimited ideas, just fountain of ideas flowing, pure enthusiasm without the worry of what the outcome will be. It's like tossing out a handful of wildflower seeds and seeing what grows. It's beginning and belief. It's openness and curiosity. It's before anything has been built, which means nothing has been ruined. It's pure potential. So to take this card into the real world, to use it as inspiration, it seems that we really have to have the right mindset. And that would be to be open and engaged in the world around you, to not become laser focused on looking down at what's not going right, to be open to possibilities and have a beginner's heart so that you're not judging the process and you're available to whatever lights up in front of you. You know, I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to read from the book on the Nine of Swords since it was just a bit elusive to see if there's any other wisdom that the book could offer. The worries that wake you in the night always feel particularly agonizing. Alone in the quiet with no distractions from the incessant anxiety, you may find it easy to fall into despair or panic. What darkness is coming up for you? What fears have been unearthed? It's important not to dismiss those feelings. There's a message here for you. Your higher self knows that it has your full attention and has wisdom to impart. Take note of your thoughts and emotions and then take slow, deep, conscious breaths. This will help clear the fear and adrenaline from your system. Remember that problems always seem amplified at such times, but when dawn breaks, it will all feel much more manageable. I wasn't really planning to read from the book, but I think it's interesting that I shared a little guided meditation for releasing thoughts and anxieties, and then that's what the book says as well. So if you find that useful, remember, your mind is the sky and your thoughts are the clouds. So just let them pass by. And remember that the sky changes constantly, all day, every day, especially Illinois in the spring. There's that meme that's like, you can't have all 4 seasons in one day. And Illinois is like, hold my beer. I think I've seen it for Tennessee and other states as well. So maybe it's just the Midwest that's like, want to bet? Those days when you're wearing like jeans and a short sleeve top and you have a cardigan in your car and a heavier coat in the car. Maybe you've got sunglasses, but you also have a scarf. You've got on boots, but you brought sandals. And our minds are like the weather. So practice noticing, especially when you're trying something new, putting yourself out there. Know that your mind is likely to freak the F out. We like to feel safe, and our brains are literally wired to keep us safe. I always think of the animated movie The Croods because it's kind of the perfect representation of this. It's like a cave family, and they're literally being chased by wild animals. And the dad's main goal is to keep the family safe, and so they have to be in the cave by a certain time, and every day is the exact same, and that's how they stay safe. But the teenage daughter is like, Dad, what else is out there? She wants to explore, and he won't budge. Until one night, when they're in the family pile, she sees light outside the cave and kind of sneaks out, and then, the movie really starts. I won't spoil it because it's actually a really good little movie if you need some inspiration in that regard. I recommend. It's another weekly obsession. I also really like the idea that your higher self has a message for you in this. And that is part of that sitting with those feelings and acknowledging it and letting to move and seeing what comes from that. I think it's really important if you currently are or want to in the future make money or make a living from your creative work, that you don't have to justify every little part of your art in terms of it being good or bad or worthy or worthwhile. If it brings you joy, that is worthwhile, and let that be enough. Especially when you're just starting out, remember that each piece of work leads you to the next. Your early work is like the throwing the dart onto the map and then going there. You discover new places and new things at each destination, and you might kind of stay over here for a while, or you might quickly decide that's not for you and move to a new location. I also feel called to say that if you're having a hard time feeling connected to joy, what did you do as a child? Like, what did you long to do or create? I recently was feeling burnout, but I was still longing to create, and I just got the urge to dance. And I remembered that as a kid, not only did I love to sing, but I also loved to dance, and I always wanted to do ballet, but honestly, we couldn't afford it then. But now I can find an adult ballet video on YouTube, and so that's actually what I did. And it's been pretty fun to just try something like that because I can. I'm obviously not going to start a new career at 44 as like a ballerina, but it's just for me. I also spent 2 months around Christmas time drawing for that same reason. I wanted to create, but something about songwriting was feeling just a little too vulnerable for me at the time, so I did something else. So remember, you're planting seeds. Remember that analogy of like throwing the wildflower seeds out and seeing what blooms. What if it's you? What if it's you that blooms? That's definitely worthwhile. So follow your feelings of joy and let it be fun. All right, I'd love to know how this landed for you this week. Does it resonate? How do you think of inspiration? And do you think it's hard to stay inspired? Head over to Made of Dreams Podcast on Instagram and follow along and leave a comment and let me know. Please consider sharing this episode and leaving a 5-star rating and review. It really helps the podcast to grow. I hope this has been helpful, and I'm going to leave you with a song of mine. In the theme of the pulse and getting free from worry and overthinking, this is called Set You Free. I'll be back next week, and in the meantime, dream on.
Gonna love, gonna leave. Gonna take you back, honey. Take what you please. And I don't ask for nothing from you. Give what you got. I don't care what you do. And I'm not counting on you, man. I'm counting you out. Don't ask my forgiveness. You don't need it now. I know I'm more than you. I'm setting you free. Free. honey, it chooses you. Gonna keep you up in the still of the night. Lead you down the rabbit hole, keep you chasing that light. And I'm not counting on